On the evening of February 28, 1986, Olof Palme left a cinema in Stockholm with his wife. No bodyguards, no security. He had refused protection for years. Sweden didn't think its leaders needed it. That changed the night he was shot on the pavement. The killer was never caught. The case stayed open for 34 years. When police finally closed it in 2020, their prime suspect was already dead. Nobody was ever convicted. Georgi Markov left Bulgaria in 1969 and never went back. From London, he broadcast radio programs that embarrassed the Bulgarian government. Personal stories, insider details, things they didn't want the world to know. They tried to silence him twice before they succeeded. When he finally died, doctors initially had no idea what had killed him. It was only during the autopsy that they found it, a tiny metal pellet, smaller than a pinhead. Philip II spent 23 years building Macedonia into a military power. He reorganized the army, conquered his neighbors, and filled the treasury. By the end, he had created something that had never existed before, a unified Greek-speaking empire. Then he was killed at his own daughter's wedding. His son inherited everything he had built. Within 10 years, that son had conquered half the known world. Patrice Lumumba became Prime Minister of the Congo in June 1960. Within months, the CIA decided he was too dangerous to be in power. They didn't need to look far for local allies. Lumumba was arrested, handed over to his enemies, and killed. What followed was 3 decades of one of the worst dictatorships in African history. Mobutu Sese Seko ruled the Congo for 32 years, looted an estimated $5 billion from one of the richest countries on earth, and left it one of the poorest. Thomas Becket and Henry II had been close friends until Becket became Archbishop of Canterbury. After that, Becket sided with the church on every dispute, no matter the cost. 4 of Henry's knights took his frustrated words as an order and acted on them. Whether Henry actually meant it that way, nobody ever proved. He spent years doing public penance to convince the Pope he hadn't ordered a murder. The church didn't fully believe him either. Claus von Stauffenberg was not trying to save Germany for himself. He was trying to save Germany from itself. By 1944, he and a group of senior German officers had concluded that the war was lost and that someone had to stop it before the country was completely destroyed. They came within feet of succeeding. A heavy oak table leg absorbed most of the blast. Hitler walked away with burst eardrums and a bruised arm. By 1965, Malcolm X was changing. He had left the Nation of Islam, made the pilgrimage to Mecca, and come back with a broader view of the world. He was starting to build new alliances, reaching beyond Black America to connect with independence movements across Africa. That shift made him more dangerous to some, including people he had once worked with closely. He was shot on stage in front of hundreds of people in broad daylight. Benazir Bhutto knew the risks when she decided to return to Pakistan in 2007. There had already been one serious attempt on her life on the day she arrived. She kept going. She held rallies, traveled in public, and continued her campaign. 2 months later, she was dead. Pakistan had nuclear weapons, a powerful military, and intelligence services with ties to every armed group in the country. Nobody was ever charged. Anwar Sadat made peace with Israel in 1979. In the Arab world, that was seen as a betrayal. He was expelled from the Arab League. Threats were made. He ignored them. 2 years later, the men who killed him were soldiers in his own army, part of a military parade he was watching from the reviewing stand. Sadat had won the Nobel Peace Prize. His killers believed they were carrying out God's will. Yitzhak Rabin spent most of his life as a soldier. He fought in Israel's wars, commanded its military, and spent decades believing that security came from strength. Then, late in his career, he changed his mind. He decided that peace with the Palestinians was possible, and he staked everything on it. The man who shot him was not a Palestinian. He was an Israeli who believed that peace was a betrayal. Indira Gandhi had been warned. After she ordered the army into the Golden Temple in Amritsar, the holiest site in Sikhism, her security advisors told her to replace her Sikh bodyguards. She refused. She said she trusted them. On October 31st, 1984, 2 of those bodyguards shot her in her own garden. The riots that followed killed more than 3,000 Sikhs across India in 4 days. Her son Rajiv succeeded her. 7 years later, he too was assassinated. Leon Trotsky had been living in exile for 11 years when he was killed. He had survived multiple previous attempts. His home had been machine-gunned just 3 months earlier. He still believed he could outlast Stalin. He was still writing, publishing, organizing, trying to build an opposition from the other side of the world. Stalin sent an agent named Ramon Mercader to get close to him. It took Mercader nearly a year to earn Trotsky's trust. On August 20th, 1940, he used that trust to kill him. Robert Kennedy had spent 5 years in his brother's shadow, and 5 more trying to find his own path. By June 1968, he had found it. He won the California primary that night, and the delegates he needed were within reach. He was the candidate most likely to end the Vietnam War. He walked off the stage, moved through the kitchen, and was shot at point-blank range. He died the next morning. His brother had been killed in 1963. America had now lost both of them. Martin Luther King had not gone to Memphis to give a speech. He was there to support striking sanitation workers, mostly black men who were paid poverty wages and treated as less than human. The night before he was shot, he gave a speech in which he said he had been to the mountaintop and seen the promised land. He did not say he expected to get there with everyone else. The next evening, he was dead, shot on the balcony of his motel. He was 39 years old. Within hours, more than 100 American cities were on fire. Nathuram Godse was a Hindu nationalist who believed Mahatma Gandhi had betrayed India. His argument was specific. Gandhi had pushed too hard for Muslim interests during partition, and the price was paid in Hindu blood. Godse shot Gandhi during evening prayers in New Delhi. Gandhi had led India's independence movement for decades. He was the main reason British rule ended. He was killed 5 months after seeing it happen by one of the people he had spent his life trying to set free. He was 79 years old. Alexander II was the most reform-minded Tsar Russia ever had. He freed the serfs. He expanded local government. He was moving, slowly, carefully, towards something that looked like a constitutional monarchy. The revolutionaries who killed him thought they were accelerating change. Instead, they handed power to his son, who reversed everything his father had built. Russia closed off. The secret police expanded. Political opposition was crushed. The road from that moment to 1917 is a straight line. 36 years later, his grandson Nicholas II was shot in a basement with his entire family. Abraham Lincoln had a plan for what came after the war. It was generous, too generous, many in his own party thought. He wanted the southern states back quickly, with minimal punishment. He believed that was the only way to actually rebuild the country. The men who disagreed with him were still arguing when Booth pulled the trigger. Without Lincoln, Reconstruction was handed to politicians who were angrier and less interested in what happened to formerly enslaved people. The South lost the war, but without Lincoln, it shaped what came next. Gavrilo Princip had already failed once that morning. The first assassin in the group had thrown a bomb at the Archduke's car, It bounced off and exploded under the wrong vehicle. Franz Ferdinand continued to his official reception, then decided to visit the people who had been wounded. His driver didn't know the new route. He made a wrong turn, and then stopped to reverse, directly in front of Princip, who had given up and was standing outside a cafe. 2 shots. 37 days later, Europe was at war. 20 million people would die in the conflict that followed. The men who killed Julius Caesar thought they were saving Rome. They were wrong. Within weeks of his death, the city was in chaos. His killers were hunted down. Most were dead within 2 years. Caesar had named his adopted son Octavian as his heir. Octavian won the civil war, took power, and became Augustus, Rome's first emperor. The senators killed one man to stop a dictatorship. What they got was 500 years of emperors. And his name? Kaiser, Tsar, all from one man. Brutus was dead within 2 years. Caesar's name lasted 2,000. John F. Kennedy had been president for less than 3 years when he was shot. In that time, he had managed the closest the world came to nuclear war, launched the space program, and pushed for civil rights legislation that most of Congress didn't want. What he would have done next, on Vietnam, on the Cold War, is one of history's most argued questions. He was only 46 years old. His accused killer was shot 2 days later on national television in front of millions of viewers before he could say anything in court. 60 years later, most Americans still don't believe the official story.